So I'm extremely fortunate today to be sitting with the amazing Dee Arp. And I was saying to Dee, I don't even know which set of questions to ask you because you are such a legend in health and safety, a stalwart of the profession. And Dee is very senior at NEBOSH, which obviously is and it has made an enormous contribution to the profession throughout the years. So firstly, hello, Dee. Thank you so much for making the time to be here today.
Oh, my absolute pleasure, and thank you for the kind words. I hope I live up to them.
We were having a chat beforehand, and most of the people that I've actually interviewed who are on the what we call commercial or service provider side have been a professional, and then perhaps they've decided to go off and to do something else within the profession. That wasn't quite the route you took, was it? So tell us a little bit about how you got to where you've got to.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, certainly of my generation, I didn't choose health and safety. It was a bit of a windy route. So going many years back, I did a civil engineering indenture with a local authority. And that took me around bridge design, road design, traffic management. But the bit that really leapt out of me within that 4-year indenture was road traffic accident investigation. So at the end of the 4 years, you got to choose which department you would like to be in, and it was that. So that was my first sort of connection with doing something that mattered, because this was about keeping people safe on the road, learning from the accidents, putting things right. That brought my first connection with ROSPA, the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents, because to do the full-time role in that department, there was a fabulous accident investigation and prevention course that ROSPA put on at that time. And then it's just so funny how things happen. So I already had the desire to look after people, keep people safe. As a result of doing that course with ROSPA, I was fortunate enough to get invited back to teach on the course. So that was the first signs of loving education and learning as well. As a result of that, when a role came up at ROSPA, crikey, about 30 years ago, it was the technical manager for road safety. That was my move to ROSPA. So now really homing in on the safety aspect of the role. And then, and again, this was a lot of years ago, and it was when ROSPA were looking to deliver managing occupational road risk in companies. So before that, it very much been not an occupational health and safety thing. So they didn't have any trainers or consultants that delivered road safety in the occupational context. So to move roles from what had been a very technical road safety background, I now needed to broaden that into WASH. So this was the introduction to occupational health and safety. And I fast-tracked doing my IOSH Managing Safely, my NEBOSH General Certificate, NEBOSH Diploma, and worked on putting together an occupational road risk course, but also started the induction to deliver the other occupational health and safety aspects of the training portfolio. And I took the decision to leave ROSPA because I was mindful that I didn't have any hands-on experience as a practitioner. So I did that for just under a year at an NHS trust up in Scotland. And that was really great. It gave me the validation that has been super important in my career, that what we were actually teaching at ROSPA in the courses and the NEBOSH qualifications was valid. It was what was needed for practitioners in the workplace. I ended up going back to ROSPA, fortunate enough then to head up the training team of trainers and consultants. And then came the introduction to NEBOSH. At that point in time, NEBOSH had learning partner representatives on the board. So I did that for a short space of time. And then it's kind of be careful what you wish for. At that point, like 20 years ago, I remember saying, I want to get a job at NEBOSH someday and help on the assessments and make sure the assessments are really vocational. And then standards manager job came up 20 years ago now. And that was the job. It was working on NEBOSH assessments and qualifications. So yeah, potted history of, didn't choose health and safety. It kind of chose me. And that's what I've always remained passionate about. How can we show up for each other? How can we keep people healthy, safe, well?
So what exactly do you do for NEBOSH now, Dee?
So now I'm Chief Quality Officer, and it has really brought together those two passions, my passion for health and safety that has always continued, but also how do we best teach that? How do we best teach today's professionals, the professionals of the future? So my portfolio includes our regulatory compliance with Ofqual and Qualification Scotland, our internal quality assurance, management systems and processes, and also looking after our portfolio of products, our qualifications, our courses, our publications, and also the design and the marking of our assessments.
What else does NEBOSH do?
So we do, I think everybody's heard of like the general qualifications. So our two biggest qualifications, or four really, because we do a national and international variant, is the general certificate that you mentioned and our diplomas. But we've also got qualifications in construction, fire, more recently wellbeing, leadership. We do a joint qualification with IIRSM on risk management. And increasingly so, we're doing tailored qualifications for corporate organisations as well. A couple of master's qualifications with Hull University. So what we try and provide in our portfolio is the route to professional membership with membership organisations, but also a route to cover increasingly complex risk profiles. So that move from certificate up to diploma.
Right. Okay. And the world of governance in organisations, the legislation and standards world is getting so much more complex, but there's also a convergence that I can see between all of the aspects of management and, people, culture, governance. Do you see your qualifications getting more specific or more general?
It's a great question. I think the general certificate, the general diplomas have remained so successful over so many years because they are general, they are portable. And you're right, the world is changing quicker than ever before, and risk profiles are changing, and the challenges, I think, for the profession and organisations are changing. But I think in our general qualifications, the principles have remained very much the same. So those principles of understanding, what is a hazard, what is a risk, how do we mitigate against those? A lot of those core elements, that core content has stayed the same. I think where it does change, we're constantly trying to make sure we're aware of the changing risk profiles in organisations. And I think if there is a big shift now, it's absolutely embracing that, of course, we need governance, we need structures of compliance. And this is my worry for the world generally. That's a big statement, isn't it? In a world of change, when there's so much technical change, that we've got AI, all of it is fabulous, so much opportunity. But my worry is we're losing the humanity. And I think that's what, I'm really mindful that we still build into our qualifications. And I know the profession that we're in, Heather, has got this. We meet so many amazing people because they've got that humanity. They want to keep people safe. So I think, NEBOSH has a duty to make sure our qualifications still reflect that. So, culture of compliance, foundation of compliance, essential. But let's make sure we're managing that culture of care as well. And I know that's something, is the essence of what.
That's really interesting because everybody that I've spoken to so far, I'm about 6 interviews in, and it's been fabulous. I've really enjoyed it. But everybody that I've spoken to has said that, the technical side, yes, it's important, but probably the thing that they've learnt most over the years is that it's mostly about the human side. It's about the influencing skills. How does NEBOSH's qualifications actually explore that aspect of the role?
So some elements of that are included in our qualifications already, but it is an area that we're looking at. The success of the general qualifications, it gives that really good grounding. And I think what we need to look at now is, once people have got that, what can NEBOSH do in terms of advancing that? I think one question that comes up from our alumni time and time again is, how do we persuade senior leadership to take on board what we're saying?
100%.
Those influencing skills. They've got all the expertise, they understand health and safety, they know what needs to be done, but how do they go into that C-suite, the boardroom, the management team, and get that message across? equally, how do they win hearts and minds with people that they're asking to do the job? So it's all influencing skills. So yeah, there is an element of that, but I think it's an area that we can really, help the profession to build
Yeah.
the profession that's needed for the future.
Everybody I've spoken to has gone into it by accident, and everybody has
Yeah.
gone, wow, I'm so happy that I'm here. But for me, it's incredibly challenging as a profession, because not only have you got to be on top of all the technical elements, you've also got to persuade people who actually are not that interested in it. You've got to influence up, and you've got to, as you said, win hearts and minds down. So I think it's a really challenging profession.
It is because, and again, you speak to hundreds and hundreds of practitioners and professionals as well, and we all get it. We know the value of what we do. It's not a cumbersome add-on for an organisation. It's something that absolutely is critical to the success, the resilience, the sustainability of the organisation. And ultimately, it's about making sure that people in our care go home safe, healthy, well to their families every single day. So we get it, but it's framing and shaping in a way that gets that buy-in from, like you say, the people doing the role, but the leadership as well. So I think it's certainly an area that needs we can support practitioners in a better way.
Yeah. So has anything surprised you about either working in the, what I'm calling commercial side, general?
I think one thing that is a constant surprise, and it's a good thing, is the humility and the grace that is within the profession. I come across lots of professions where there's defensiveness, there's not a willingness to share, and some of that is because of commercial reasons, and I can understand that. But I think what I love about our profession is, and it does constantly surprise me, I'm blessed to travel, internationally, and it's the same everywhere I've been. People show up for each other, they support each other, and there's that willingness to share best practice. So that is fabulous. What else has surprised me? I think it's the challenge that in a world that is changing so long time and are not shifting quickly. So we still hear things like health is the correlation to safety. Lots has been done over the years to shift the safety dial. We're still pushing to get health recognised in the same way. And I think with that now, I'd say there's so much more to do about mental health, that creating that culture of care. I think what does surprise me is there's still that and we need to give people the skills to do it. I acknowledge that, but I think there is the surprises. Why do not all leaders get this? Why it's so simple. If you look after your people, if you show that they're valued, they will add value. So I think I understand the reasons why people are busy. Leaders have got so many other things pulling at their time, but I think that is a surprise. Sometimes, why don't you get this? Let's just look after our people, and other things will just fall into place.
One thing that has been surprising me recently that I'll be really interested in your views on is around that area of occupational health specifically. So health obviously means so many different things. And we, for a while, focused on well-being, but well-being not from a stress prevention perspective, but destigmatizing mental ill health. Now we're sort of starting to look at psychosocial risk, all of which is brilliant. But I've been to several conferences over the last couple of years where occupational health hasn't even featured. And it really does feel like, in the rush to kind of look at well-being, where we're just starting to bring occupational health up the agenda, and now it's just fallen away again. So why do you think that is? Is it because these are issues that take such a long time to come out? Is it because health and safety professionals aren't trained? Is it because it's managed elsewhere in the organisation? Any views?
I think it's all of those things, Heather. And I go back to when I was studying my certificate, my diploma, it was almost like the health part was hived off somewhere else. You get great occupational health conferences and bodies that look after occupational health. And I know there's work being done to join the dots, but I think that's where we can be better, join the dots more. But that becomes more challenging because over the years, the OSH practitioners perhaps had it had quality added into the role, and then security. Then, as you say, this quite rightly so, this huge emphasis on well-being. So the profession needs some help on the tangibles. There's great conferences out there, but the ones that I enjoy the most and I feel the most energy in and around is where people are actually given some tangibles to take away. Where conference discusses, these are the issues, these are the challenges, this is what has been tried, this is something that you can take away and try in your own organisation. And I think we need more of that. But yeah, to answer the question, I think it's all of those things. Because in some organisations still, well, that's not the practitioner's role, that's HR. There's an occupational health department, that we still get occupational health referrals, and that nothing wrong with that, because that's where the expertise is. But I think sometimes in the busy world, there's not the time to join the dots and put the golden thread through it.
I said to you earlier about this whole convergence that I see taking place with all of the new legislation and standard enhancements that are taking place, where, and psychosocial risk is a great example of that. You cannot do that in a silo. And no. I think the health and safety profession has been a bit siloed, and probably occupational health is a bit siloed. And moving forward, risk, we just need to look at just more generally and work together on what our key risks are and who fits where. And it's really complicated. It's just another layer of complication, isn't it? But equally, that would help us prioritise potentially.
I think so. And there's another layer of complexity. I was on chairing a great panel with some of our friends a few weeks ago, and Crystal Danbury, she brought to the table, well, people now are impacted by what is happening in the world. That is impacting how people feel, how they behave in the workplace. So it is complex, and it is a lot. There's no one profession that can have the expertise to deal with all of that complexity. So I think there is some rethinking and reframing. But for me, that's exciting. I think this is where we've got to come together and step up and say, okay, all of this is happening. It's not going to shape us. Let's shape our future together. But yeah, you're right. That's got to be collaborative. We've got to come together and find the space to do that in busy lives.
So, Dee, what do you think has mattered most in helping you build such a successful career? Is it a strong network? Is it, being in the right organisation? What do you think's made a big difference to you?
Again, a great question. I think I've never been the sort of person that's aspired to have this role by this point in my career. I think all I've ever wanted to do is add value, and feel valued. And I've been very lucky and blessed that my career has always taken me in that direction. So my passions of keeping people safe, healthy, well, and passion for learning and assessment have just naturally come together. I think what's contributed to success? I think I'm passionate and I'm authentic. So I'm blessed, like you are, to get invited to speak at some great conferences and events. And I like to think, yet to a degree, I know what I'm talking about, because I wouldn't put myself up there on this topic that I didn't feel I could bring some value to. But I think I get asked back because I am genuinely passionate about what I talk about, and there's authenticity in that. And again, it goes back to the network and the people that we're lucky enough to cross paths with. There's great support. There's so many people. If I wanted to run something past somebody, including yourself, that network is there, and we do all show up for each other. So I think it's the passion for what I do, the authenticity, and always wanting to add value. And I think, again, going back to the pace of change, being prepared to, change with the way the world is changing.
So let's talk about the woman element. Do you think that for you specifically, or more broadly in the profession, being a woman creates challenges or opportunities, or has it made no difference to you?
I think it's both. Again, going back quite a few years. So my very first job, I was the only girl doing the indenture program. There were a few challenges around that. Some people would make perceptions, because I did well. I won an award on that indenture for the best dissertation, that I worked flipping hard, but there were some perceptions, or did she get that because she was the only the only girl in that group. Another example, interesting, I remember showing up to deliver a diploma session. I was working at Rossborough, I was delivering the NEBOSH diploma. I was in the room setting up. The class was, I think it was all male. A group came in early and they just assumed that I was not the trainer on the course, but I was one of the class. And their faces when I actually stood up at the beginning to say hi, I'm Dee, I'm your trainer. But and I think again, this is going back a lot of years, I think one thing I found from most of the guys were absolutely fine because, your experience, your ability to deliver the course would speak for itself. The majority would wait for that. They would just wait to see, well, is this person in front of me deserving to do so? And then they would be fine. You would get one or two that would push boundaries, maybe tell a few rude jokes to see whether where your humour was. And so I think that it was a challenge, but it was also an opportunity because it made me very confident, I think, and able. It's got me to the point now where I can present, hopefully confidently and deal with queries. So it was a challenge, but it taught me a lot as well. I think both. And I think you still see challenges, when you travel internationally. The women in OSH is still a much smaller proportion than the guys. And yet, we look at equity, diversity, there's so much to be achieved if we can create a better balance there.
Obviously, this is particularly for women in health and safety, but we've also seen the demographic change from an age perspective, haven't we, over the last 30 years? We've got a lot of younger people in the profession. There are still definitely we're still fairly narrow from a perspective of lots of demographics that aren't represented very well in the profession. But what is the value? Why do we encourage diversity?
Because then we can truly represent, the people in our organisation and the people impacted by organisations. It's funny, hearing that in some places, an interview is, you're obviously trying to get the right fit, but right fit for some interviewers can mean different things. Some people will want, well, right fit for me means getting a person that agrees with me. Right fit for me is somebody that will challenge. Unless there's challenge, and that's only going to come from a broad range of views and opinions, unless there's challenge, we'll just keep doing the same thing, which might not always be the right thing. It might be okay. But I think that diversity, that confidence, when you've got true psychological safety, that people know they can not just ask questions, but challenge other people's views as well. It creates improvement, it creates positive change, it creates sustainability.
Is there a moment, an achievement, or a turning point in your career that you're particularly proud of?
Do you know what, Heather? For me, it's not the big wins. I've been fortunate enough to win some awards. Incredibly humbled by that. But I think for me, it's not just one thing. It's it's people that I've perhaps worked with or managed, when the trust is there that they'll come and they'll tell me about what's not going right for them. It's those moments. I think as I've got more senior positions, hopefully I've not lost the accessibility. So it's those moments that people feel free that anybody can contact me on LinkedIn, and I don't always have time to reply immediately, but I will reply to everybody. So it's that, I think, advancing in a career, but still having people's trust and still being accessible. I mean, there were other moments, I think my first probably imposter syndrome moment was getting my first, real leadership position, and that was probably a turning point, thinking, crikey, can I really do this? So I think it's those moments when people have seen something in me that I'd not seen in myself.
I love that, Dee. You are so humble and warm. That's one of the things that I love about you. My last question for you is, what if a woman was considering moving into health and safety, what would your advice be?
Oh, absolutely do it. Know that it's something that you're passionate about. Know that it's absolutely, a career for life, if that's what you want. Get that general foundation. and then know where, maybe a greater passion is, where you want to go into something in more depth. Is it a more technical aspect? Is it in the well-being? Know the organisations you'd perhaps like to work in, but have that confidence in yourself. Know that if this is something you really want to do and you are passionate about it, know that you can do it. Bring your passion, bring your authenticity, and know that you will make a difference. And whenever I'm honoured enough to stand in front of any, professionals and practitioners, I always take the opportunity to say thank you, because I'm not in that role now where I'm got those challenges in an organization. But know that if you step into this space, what you do matters. It absolutely matters every single day that you show up, and because of what you do, people will have their lives saved. You won't always know when and where, but you will know that you are making a difference every single day. So yeah, my advice would be, explore it, really know what you're getting into, really test that you've got the passion and the authenticity for it, and then know that you can do it, and know that you're stepping into a network where people will support you and help you and show up for each other.
Absolute pleasure, Dee.